Intimidated by all the choices in the art supply store? Wanting to learn how to paint? Wanting to start? Maybe you have a history where you used to a long time ago and you have some old supplies left in the closet and you're not sure what to do with them, if they're even any good anymore. So what do you do when you want to start to paint? You're curious about the whole process. You want to create something, and your choice of paints would be acrylics, which is what we're going to talk about today. What do you do? What do you choose? What do you do to get started? I'd like to tell you that it's all learnable. It's not as complicated as we sometimes make it out to be. And when we go to the art supply store, there's so many choices. There's so many different types of paints. There's so many different products that you can add to the paint. So I want to try to simplify a little bit of this at this time. For example, some of the things that you might want to get just to kind of have in your environment, your space, your corner, your kitchen table, wherever, there's a few things that you need to get started. To get started, use the foam dinner plates, not the paper ones, but the foam. And you can use these to mix your paints on. And just a little trick, if you want to take a coffee break or something, you can take another plate, put it on top, put something on top to hold it tight, and the paint will stay wet for a little bit. Depends on if it's a lump of paint, that'll stay wet. Otherwise, it'll dry. But anyway, the foam ones, because the paper ones the paint will be absorbed into the paper. The other thing that I encourage people to get when they get started is you don't need to worry about purchasing canvases at first. What I do is I use this watercolor paper, and I get a product called Gesso, Gesso. I'll have information below. But I go ahead and I paint just one loose layer of that on the watercolor paper so it doesn't act like watercolor paper. It will allow you to work longer on the paper with your acrylics so they don't just soak in, because it acts like a blotter for the watercolors like it's supposed to. So anyway, the reason I like using this is because you don't have that mental fear of, oh, I'm going to waste a canvas if I get the canvas out and I try to create something and it's bad. Oh my gosh. Because if you work on here and you like it, you can always frame it later. Also, it doesn't take up a lot of room. If you can certainly, of course, buy canvases, that's not an issue, but you can use these for practice as you progress, but you can also use this to start out. And the thing is, you can file them away. You can write on the back and say, hey, I tried to do this or that, and I did great, or I don't like what I did, etc. You can date them. You can see your progress. So it's a great way to get started and not feel bad about thinking, oh, I'm going to waste my supplies. So anyway, and I'd like to also, let's see, put this down here, suggest that you need rags or paper towels. So let's start from the beginning. Paper towels, a surface to paint on. I told you about the plates. I also have what I call a palette to hold my paints. Now, I'm not suggesting that you need to buy this right away, but it's really handy because as you progress and get your paints and you want to have them available to mix and not have to squirt out paint each time, I'm going to show you my messy palette. Woo! Now, these have stayed wet for weeks, which is almost unheard of. There's no wet sponge in here. I don't have to put water in here. I put the paints in here that I use all the time, and I dip in there and pull it out. Sometimes I mix in here, obviously, but the majority of the time I mix on the plates, just a little bit at a time. But this way I have the paints available so that instead of just putting a squirt of paint out on a plate and waste all that, it's sitting right here, and I just use my brush to pull out what I need. So that's pretty handy. Again, I have a link for all these supplies. I can have it below. Paint. This will get you. This will be potentially a stress point. Now, there's a difference between student grade paints, craft paints, and professional grade paints. It's got to do with the pigment, which is the powder for the paint, and the binder, which is what makes it paint. And craft paints have the least amount of binder, perhaps. Student grade paints, a lot of them are transparent. A lot of them aren't really exactly the color they say on the label, maybe. Let's just put it this way. The pigment is not as intense. It's not as rich as the professional grade paints. Now, you can certainly start out with the student grade paints, and I've got some of these right here. I'll show you. This is Blick's version of their student grade studio acrylics. And you can start out and say, oh, I'm just going to get primary yellow, primary blue, primary red, a white, titanium white, and a black if you so desire. I don't typically use black when I paint, but of course that's an option. Those are student grade paints, and you just have to use a lot of them sometimes to cover an area. And I'm going to go into a lot about paints and the type of paints as far as coverage, etc., in another video because that's a deep subject. But some of the brands I use for professional grade paints would be Golden Acrylics. All their paints are professional grade. Liquitex, on the label it says professional. That's their professional line. Sometimes they change their label and sometimes it gets confusing, but it says professional. They do have a student grade paint and it's called Basics. Now, let's see. This is Winsor Newton and it says professional acrylics on here. Blick has a professional line. It says Blick Artist Acrylic. One I would say clue might be is it professional versus student grade on you're looking online and you're trying to figure out, or you're in the store and you're overwhelmed by all the pretty colors. The student grade paints tend to, most of the time, be the same price for all the colors in a certain size. Whereas the professional grade paints, they base it on the pigment. They call it series 1 through, depends on, some companies go to 8, sometimes whatever. I would suggest, my honest opinion is to start out with a professional, but with a limited palette. And I will, like I said, I will go into all that later because every artist has their choice of what's the best palette of colors, choice of colors that you could use and not break the bank, not buy too many. Everybody has an opinion on, oh, I need lots of colors or I just need 4 or 5. And so what I will do is I'll be giving you information as to why I would choose certain colors to help you paint what you need to paint most of the time. Okay, you need a spray bottle. You need a water bottle. I've got different kinds. This one, or there's one that I have different ones. Anyway, but you need a spray bottle for water. You need a container for the water so that you want to clean. Some people use 2 buckets or 2 containers. One for clear water to use to add to your paints, which I'll talk about that in a minute. And the other one is to clean your brush. Now, if you use too much water with your paint, you'll dilute them too much and you'll separate the binder, which is what makes it paint, from the pigment, and it's not a good idea. It's for the safety of your painting. So yes, of course we can use water and add it to our paints. There's a water medium, but there are products called, like I use gloss medium a lot. There's matte medium, satin. There's different products you can add to your paint to extend them, to make them more transparent, to make them thicker, to do different things. So I would suggest relying on those products instead of water to change the consistency. Because you might say, I want them to act like a watercolor. There's actually mediums that can make them dilute them to look that way. And there's also some acrylics that are made in such a way that they act a lot like watercolor. So we got a plate that you can use to mix your paints. You've got the palette that you can get soon to put your paints in. You got your spray bottle, container for the water, and you can paint on the watercolor paper. Now you can work on, in the store you can find something called canvas boards, which is like a cardboard with canvas wrapped around it, or you can get canvases themselves. We'll talk about different kinds. Spray bottle, really, and paper towels. So really a setup as simple as that. You don't need to buy an easel right away. You can work flat on your table. I would say have a good area that has good lighting so you can see your work. And lighting can be a challenge because different lights make the colors look different. Some of them look more, I don't even want to get into that, but let's just put it this way. Natural light, overhead lights that we have in our homes, lights that are for our true sunlight, true natural light bulbs or whatever. Oh my goodness, it is complicated. But just know that just start out, relax, just use the lights that you have in your room. Get a lamp if you need, if you can't see very well, put it near your table. Don't worry about the quality of the light yet. It's not that important. So, bottom line, you can start out with just a few things. You don't need to be overwhelmed. I'm going to be showing you different combinations of colors in my upcoming video so that you'll maybe feel comfortable. You don't need to pick all the colors available in the store because a lot of those colors are actually mixtures. And you might even own the colors that they use to make those mixtures. It's just, sometimes it's more fun to buy the paints already made up. Like there might be I don't know, like a pretty color that looks like a light purple or a pretty blue that's pale blue. But it's not something that you need to buy. You can always add white to the blue you already own. That kind of thing. Thank you for watching this. And I know it's just a little tease as to what you need to get started. Just a beginner. start. And thanks for watching, like I said, and let's continue our journey and trying to start painting.